Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning. We are into the third national lockdown now, and last year was really difficult for everyone. And with the new lockdown announced 4 days into the new year, this year got off to a rocky start. So what makes this year, I think, even more challenging is that we've got VAT that was deferred from April and May last year that now needs to be paid. We've got self-assessment tax bills that were deferred in July that are going to need to be paid, and we've got the bounce back and Sybil's loans that will that had a 12-month deferment period, and they're going to need to be repaid this year as well. So we wanted to support our clients as much as we possibly can. So we're going to be doing these webinars each week to keep you up to date with any changes and give you as much support as we can. So, as I say, lockdown from last week, and the first big announcement was to do with grants. And in particular, businesses in retail, hospitality and the leisure sectors are to receive another grant worth up to £9,000. So this is focused mainly, like I say, on retail, hospitality and leisure businesses that have just had to totally close. They're calling them one-off, but this is the second one. So they're not quite one-off, are they? So, but they are a different figure. So last year, businesses with a rateable value up to 15,000 got a grant of £10,000. They're going to get £4,000. Those that got 25,000 last year, so had a rateable value between 15 and 51,000, will receive £6,000, and those businesses with a rateable value over 51,000 will receive 9,000. And those businesses didn't get anything last year, so they are getting something this year when last year they went without. I had a bit of a look on the Chichester District Council website in preparation for this meeting, and they've got some really good resources on there. So, you know, the announcements last week by the government are the high level grants, but the local authorities have also got other grants that are available. And there's a really handy PDF which lists down all the available grants. So after this meeting, we're going to circulate that to everybody that's attended, and do take a look at that, because those grants extend beyond just these retail leisure industries. You might be eligible, so it's worth a look. Some of it's to cover basically grants for businesses financially impacted by the pandemic, open to all businesses, whether liable to business rates or not. So I think you probably will need to demonstrate that you've been affected and perhaps incurred costs in making your business COVID secure, but it's worth taking a look at those grants to see if there's anything that might be available to you. And looking at that, there was a couple there that I wasn't aware of. So like I say, it's worth looking. If you are a wed-let pub, so not a restaurant, so 50% of your income comes less than 50% from food, so mainly drinks, then you could apply for a Christmas support payment. But the deadline for that is the end of this month. So you need to move quite quickly now. A lot of these grants are open for quite a short period of time. So we're encouraging clients to look at those sooner rather than later. So that was the big announcement last week. There hasn't really been very much subsequent to that. So I'm just going to go through those things that have been in the public domain and the things that we've been working on over in the last few months, which is still relevant now going forward into this year to help you try and plan. So coronavirus job retention scheme is still around. It's been extended a couple of times now. The current extension goes until the 30th of April, which to my mind gives a bit of an indication, I think, as to how long we think this lockdown may well last. So the claims for furlough days in December must have been made by the 14th of January, so that was yesterday. I don't think that's a problem for most people. Payroll's done on a monthly basis, and December payroll would have been done by now, and probably the furlough claim made at that time. You can no longer, if you are behind on doing your claims though, you can no longer submit claims for periods ending on or before October. So they are starting to sort of condense down the period of time that you've got to make those claims. So the claim is 80% of the usual salary for hours not worked, up to a maximum of 2,500 per month per employee. You can part-time furlough your employees, which is much more helpful, I think, than at the very beginning when it was an all or nothing. You had to furlough people full time, whereas now, if there's still work to be done, but not as much as before, then you can reduce their hours down. If you're going to make a furlough claim, though, they absolutely must not work on those days that you're claiming furlough for. And HMRC will be looking into those claims in due course, and the penalty is as much as 100% of an incorrect furlough claim. So there's lots of speculation in the press about fraudulent claims, and they will be looking at those in due course. But still a really useful tool to keep things ticking over, keep your employees employed and with income, but maybe not as expensive for a business as what it was before. So that's really useful. If you're going to furlough somebody now, they must have been on the payroll in October. So again, that date at the very beginning, it was March, and as they extend the scheme, they bring in the date along with it. So it isn't, it's being opened up now to more employees that perhaps back in, if you took anybody in April and May, and then things took a bit of a downturn, you couldn't furlough them because they weren't on the payroll at the right time. Now you can. So again, that's really useful. Income tax is the next big thing that I'm worrying about on behalf of clients. So there's no change to the filing deadline at the end of this month. So your 5th of April 2020 tax return is due to be filed by the end of this month. Again, there's been speculation, and the professional bodies have asked HMRC to extend the deadline. They aren't budging on the deadline, and I think from our perspective, we think that's probably correct, because all you're doing is postponing the inevitable, I guess. So they aren't postponing the deadline at the moment. There is speculation that they might go easy on the penalties. So if you can't get your tax return in January, and the reason why you can't is because you've been so impacted by COVID, you've not been able to do your tax return, then they may reduce those penalties. Personally, my advice is don't take the risk, get your tax return in. You don't want to be in that discussion. You don't want HMRC challenging you in the future in terms of whether or not they're going to charge penalties. So get the return in, get it out of the way. It's a headache. Most people want to see the back of, so get that done. The good news is though, if you're struggling to pay, then they are very receptive to talking to you about deferring the payment. So an additional 12-month extension from HMRC on the time to pay self-service facility. So any tax payments that weren't paid in July that now should be being paid, and those due this month, can be deferred for another 12 months, provided you agree that with HMRC before the end of this month. So come some conditions though, you've got to owe £30,000 or less. You don't have any other payment plans or debts with HMRC. Your tax returns are all up to date, and it is less than 60 days after the payment deadline. So what I just said before about having it agreed by January, sorry, is not quite right. You have got a little bit of time, but don't leave it too late. Talk to them sooner rather than later and get that payment plan in place. You don't need to contact them if all of those things, if you tick all of those boxes. You can log into your own government gateway and set up the payment plan that way. So we can't do it for you. You need to go into your own login and do that yourself. If you struggle though, or you're not eligible because perhaps your payment plan, your tax bill's more than 30,000, or you can't access the online service for whatever reason, then you can call them. You'll need to know your tax reference number, the amount of the tax that you're needing to pay, and the reasons why, and what actions you're taking to get the money together to be able to pay it. So they may ask you some questions and want to validate the reasons, but do talk to them. They're being very receptive for that at the moment. The other thing on your income tax is, if you do pay self-assessment, you'll know that you make a payment on account in January for the tax return period that we're currently in. So you pay on account of the current year's tax in January and in July. Review those payments. Those payments are based on the previous year's tax liability. So if you know your income is going to be less this year, then you could apply to HMRC to reduce that the July and January payments this year. So do review that, and that is something we can help you with. So talk to us about that if you think that actually my income's just dropped right down this year. Bear in mind though that if you've received a self-employment income support scheme grant, that's taxable, and if you received these rates grants, they're also taxable. So you might think that your income's down in the sense that your business has reduced, but if you've had these grants to keep you going, then actually your overall taxable income may not have come down in the way that you think. Okay, so that's self-assessment. Corporation tax. So there hasn't been a great deal of support for companies during this period of time, other than the ability to furlough employees, and if you've got property, you'll get the rate grants. So, and I don't see any indication that that's going to change. There's been lots of companies, small companies, where it's an owner managed shareholder director taking a mixture of a small salary and dividends. That's probably the main area that we see that clients feel that they haven't had any support at all. There's no indication as to whether or not that's going to change over the next period of lockdown. So the main thing to say to companies, if you have had a very, very challenging year, if you think that you have made a loss in the year that we're currently in, try and get your accounts done, your year-end accounts done as quickly as possible, because that loss, if you've made a profit previously, that loss in the current year can be carried back, and then any tax that was paid in the previous year may well come back to you. So from a cash flow perspective, you may get a refund of tax previously paid. So it's not a particularly helpful thing for many, but if you have seen your profits significantly drop down and you have a loss, then try and get that tax back sooner rather than later. Okay, self-employment income support scheme grants for the self-employed. So there have been 3 grants so far. You must have been trading in 2018-19. So again, another pocket of clients that haven't had any support are those sole traders that set up and started trading after 5th of April 19, but before lockdown started. So if that was your first year of trading, then sadly you won't have had any support. But those that can, those grants have been enormously valuable. The key thing on this, again, it's something that you as the client needs to log into the gateway to claim it yourself. We can't help you do that for you, and you need to keep records on this one. So the criteria is that you must be currently trading, so you're carrying on, or you were trading at the point of lockdown. You may not be trading now because you're not able to, but you intend to carry on trading, and you've been impacted by reduced demand because of the coronavirus. So, and they, again, in the same way that furlough claims in the future are likely to be reviewed, chances are that these SEI grants will be as well, the self-employment grants. So the key thing I want to say on this one is the deadline. So there's been 3 grants so far, and the deadline for claiming the 3rd grant is the 29th of January, this 14 days time. So if you haven't claimed that 4th grant, you need to look at whether or not you meet the criteria to claim it, and if you do want to, then you need to get on with it in the next couple of weeks, basically. There will be a fourth grant which will cover the period from February 2021 to April 2021. But at the moment, there's no details of when to claim that and what the value of that claim is going to be. The third grant was the same level as the first grant, which was 80% of the average, or very similar, 80% of 3 months average monthly trading profit, capped at 7,500. My guess is it might be slightly less, but it depends on the restrictions, I guess. If we're still in full lockdown, then I guess they're going to have to give those people the full grant. But watch that date. Once that date's gone, and I have had a number of clients that didn't claim the second grant because they left it quite late, and then when they came to do it, for whatever reason, they couldn't access the system, deadlines had been lost, whatever, passwords lost, whatever, and then the deadline came and went and they weren't able to claim it. So yeah, your deadline is 2 weeks, but I'd do it sooner rather than later. And keep evidence to support that claim. So will you be able to demonstrate to HMRC that there has been an impact on your business and therefore you've made that claim? Okay, the last quick section then is on VAT. So VAT payments that were due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June last year were deferred. If you chose to, you could have paid if you want, but obviously a lot were very anxious at the start of that lockdown and took the opportunity to not pay that VAT to see how the summer went with cash flow. So the time to pay that VAT return is going to be by the end of March of this year. However, again, in the same way that they're supporting self-assessment taxpayers to pay that liability, they're also going to support, HMRC are going to support businesses with their VAT payment as well. So if you can't afford to pay that lump sum by the end of March, you can make up to 11 smaller interest-free payments during the 2021-22 tax year. So yeah, make 12 payments to the end of March 2022. You need to opt in. So again, you've got to contact HMRC to do this. You need to be up to date with your VAT returns. So we're advising clients, even if they can't afford to pay and the VAT right now, they're continuing to trade, get you to make sure your tax returns are all in on time. And then HMRC will want the payments to be made by direct debit. So again, we can't set this up for you. You need to contact HMRC and arrange to put the payment plan in place. So you need your government gateway account again for VAT. So if you haven't already got that government gateway, I suggest, even though the VAT doesn't need to be paid for 2 more months, I suggest that you make sure you can get into your government gateway for VAT sooner rather than later, because again, it can be time consuming and quite painful to get HMRC accounts set up. And so if you are behind with your VAT, before you apply for the deferment, you need to get your any outstanding VAT returns in for the last 4 years. If you think you might have any errors on your VAT returns, you need to make sure that those are corrected, and then consider the number of instalments that you want to pay the VAT over. Make sure you know how much they owe them, and make sure have the complete picture of your VAT account. If you ring up and say, well, I don't quite know because I've not got my records up to date, they're not going to be able to agree anything. So and I guess the key thing on all of this, the big message for all of this year is all about cash flow. So I think everybody, every business, big or small, needs to be sitting down now and looking at a 12-month cash flow for the next looking at 12-month cash flow, possibly longer. We'll see how this next 12 months goes, and we can help you with that. We've got some really great software that can give you a 3-month cash flow in no time for no additional cost at this stage. If you want it longer than that, then we can talk about that. So those are the main things that we're all working on and worrying about at the moment. So just a quick to finish off. So it's been 20 minutes, so that's good. That was what I was hoping it would be, not a long session. Some key dates for January. 14th of January, furlough claims for December, so hopefully you've got all of those in. 29th of January, the deadline for the application for the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme grant for the self-employed. 31st of January is your self-assessment filing deadline. Get that in. Even if you can't afford to pay the tax, get it in. And also then once that tax bill's in, contact HMRC, get a payment plan in place if you need to for last July and this January's tax. And then 31st of March, by then I've known what your VAT position is and contacted HMRC to have got a payment plan over the next 12 months should you need it. And that's it. That's all I've got to say today. It's a very quick run through, hopefully just some timely reminders. The big thing to follow up, I think, for lots of people is going to be the grants. It's not something that we're particularly give advice on because it's not our area, and we just don't talk to the council. So we'll be sending the data that's on their website out to all clients to make sure that they're seeing that. And we'll do a similar thing to this every Friday for as long as we think we need to, as we support clients through this next 12 months. So thanks again for joining. I was very worried I'd have nobody turning up and I'd be talking to myself. So it's very nice to see so many here. Hopefully as we do more of these, we'll get more in attendance. So thank you again. Any questions, please let me know.